unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted Show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, rock stars of the Kick-Ass Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Raw and Unscripted Show with yours truly, Christopher Rausch, your No Excuses coach, and you at your place where I help you quit your excuses and get results. We appreciate you guys being here, whether you're live on the video cast, as we are every single Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube, on social medias, or of course you're listening to the podcast in one of any 30 plus countries. We appreciate you guys being here so much. We're on episode number 307. We've been doing this show now for a little over 6 years, and I thank you guys for showing up. I thank you, Robert Brooker, for being here as always, and all you other beautiful people who show up live and of course on the replay on the East Coast. So thank you guys all for being here. We got an exciting show for you guys tonight. It's just you and I, and we're going to be delving into a very important subject that you guys reached out to me and said, hey Chris, I'd love for you to talk about this. But before we get into that, I want to talk about last week's show. I don't do a good job of promoting what we did last week. And last week, in case you missed it, we had the amazing Julie Brenning on the show. It was her birthday, and we talked about breast cancer. We talked about the journey of going through a diagnosis that is so dire that potentially people can lose their lives. And the uplifting aspect of that conversation was that you don't have to be a victim of your own thoughts. And Julie was very transparent, very vulnerable in sharing her diagnosis, sharing what it is that she went through emotionally, physically, and spiritually. But most importantly, she talked about her mindset and how she named her cancer Candace, and what she did by journaling and having that conversation with Candace in order for her to find her strength, find her will to not only beat cancer, but to become a thriver and to really identify herself in terms of what it is that she wants to be known for. She shifted her identity. It was a very powerful conversation. I encourage you to go back to listen to it, or you can watch it, of course, if you go to youtube.com/Christopher Rausch. There is a playlist of all the Raw and Unscripted shows, and you can see the conversation there. We experienced a little bit of internet issues during that conversation, so we apologize for that. But the overall structure and outcome of that conversation was very inspiring. I got a lot of feedback from that, loving the chemistry between Julie and I. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that show. And there are tons of shows. I would also recommend going back and listening to the episode number 300, where I talked about the 8 irrefutable laws of life. And the reason why I chose 8 is because my son is 8. And basically in that conversation, I talked about the 8 laws of life. If I were to pass away tomorrow, what 8 rules of life would I give to you in order for you to have a kick-ass, unstoppable life? And that's what we do here. We help you guys shift your beliefs and your perspectives and your expectations about your past, present, and your future, so that you walk away from each conversation with at least 3 strategies that you implement over the next 7 days. And then you come back here to class, if you will. This is class, so welcome, students. And you implement those 3 strategies in your life, and compounded over weeks, your life will change. Your attitude will change. Your confidence will improve. Your clarity will improve. Your sense of inner peace will improve, because ultimately, I'm going to talk about this tonight, but ultimately, when you have a big enough why, you have a big enough how. And that is in terms of leverage. So when you think about when you have leverage in your life, oftentimes we change, whether it is something positive or it is potentially something that can be life-threatening. Like in Julie's case, she had the cancer diagnosis and a lot changed for her. And the big thing that changes for a lot of us is we become grateful. Because so oftentimes when you think about this, I'll be happy when? I'll be happy when I have more money. I'll be happy when I have the job. I'll be happy when I have the relationship. I'll be happy when I have the body. Think about what you say to yourself. Why not be happy right now? Why not be happy right now? You're breathing. That's pretty fucking cool, right? I think back in terms of COVID, the thing I learned most from COVID is taking that breath, because a lot of people lost their ability to breathe. I have personal friends that were on ventilators, and they're like, Chris, God, I took breathing for granted. So what is it that you're saying for yourself? When will you be happy? Choose to be happy right now. You may not have the money. You may not have the house. You may not have 10 cars. But do you have people in your life that you love and that love you? Do you have your health? Are you on 16 medications or are you taking vitamins? What is it for you? Because when you get grateful about what it is that you have now, everything else becomes a bonus, right? So I invite you to choose to be happy now, but perhaps right now you're not happy. Perhaps right now you're avoiding the truth of life. And tonight's topic of conversation is about addictions. And you guys specifically, when I put this out on social media, I said, what do you guys want me to talk about? It's a solo show. I'm doing more of those. What do you guys want me to talk about? And overwhelming, I got a lot of great responses and I wrote them down. Thank you very much. But overwhelmingly, in one form or another, or directly, you guys wanted me to talk about addictions. Now I'm going to give the disclaimer right away. I am not an addictions expert. I am not a licensed clinical, whatever you might want to call it, but I have plenty of experience with my own personal addictions and helping my coaching clients over the last 20 years overcome a lot of addictions. Again, I am not an expert. This episode, this conversation tonight is designed for you to get some opportunities for you to think about things differently in terms of what it is that you might be addicted to. So often I ask my guests, as you guys know, I ask my guests, what is it that you want to get across most to people tonight? And actually tonight I took some notes. So I'm going to read a couple of things that I wrote down here because I really wanted to make this episode impactful. And again, I'm not an expert on this, but I do have a lot of experience from my own perspective. So that's what I'm going to be sharing tonight. So what I want you to walk away from with the conversation tonight is I want you to be more aware that if you are addicted to something, whether it's the traditional, booze, drugs, sex, smoking, shopping, whatever it might be, I want you to walk away. And sometimes people are addicted to misery and bad relationships, but I want you to walk away tonight thinking about how that's impacting yourself, but more importantly, how that is impacting people that you love. Because when I ask people who it is that you love the most, very seldom I get me, because people think of that in terms of being selfish. But you are not being selfish by saying that you love yourself the most, because when you love yourself the most, guess what? You make better choices. And oftentimes when I ask people, who do you love the most? They tell me my son, my dad, my mom, my wife, insert anybody in there to the conversation that you want. And so when I ask them again, me being a numbers person, on a scale of 1 to 10, can't pick 7, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love that person? 99% of the time I hear 10. And I'm like, okay, great. You love that person. Would you take a bullet for that person? Yes, I would, Chris. Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love yourself? How much are you taking care of yourself? How is your self-talk with yourself? And again, you can't pick 7 because a lot of people pick 7 because it sounds like a good number and it's, it's above average, but it's not quite great. And very oftentimes I hear 4, 5, or 6. So think about this, really digest what I'm about to say. So if you love that person a 10, but you're taking care of yourself, let's say at a 4, what is that person really getting? Is that person getting a 10 or is that person getting a 4? And if you're being honest with yourself, you're going to say, you know what? I didn't think about it that way. That person's getting a 4. My next question to you, does that person deserve a 10 or are you just full of shit? And oftentimes they go, you know what? That's a great question, Chris. They deserve a 10. And I'm like, do you deserve a 10? And that's where the conversation gets a little challenging. And I'll share something with you. Over COVID, speaking of COVID, I gave out free coaching sessions. And in that process, I heard a whisper in my head that says, Chris, ask these people, do they love themselves? Yes or no? And in my head, the conversation I was having, just like this over the camera, well, I thought it was stupid. I'm like, come on, really? You want me to ask these people if they love themselves? Of course, people love themselves. They may not necessarily like themselves, but of course they love themselves. But the little whisper in my head, which I encourage you guys to listen to, wanted me to say it. And so I would say, hey, Jeremy, I'm going to ask you this question. I don't want you to think too much about it, but do you love yourself? Yes or no? And I was pretty shocked at the amount of people that struggle to answer that question. And then they realized, and I saw their facial expressions, I saw their body language, which is a lot of the communication, right? We know this. I saw them go, yeah, kind of, sort of. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for the most part. And then sometimes they would say they don't like themselves. And so when you think about addiction, and you think about why we have the addictions to the traditional things and maybe to bad relationships and other things we're going to be talking about tonight, it stems from love. And it really, guys, if you've been watching me for any time or listening to me for any amount of time, you guys know I like to get to the root of a situation. I like to simplify things, keep it simple, and I like to get to the root of things. And so a lot of times it comes down to worthiness. It comes to worthiness. Who do we have joining us tonight? I'm just going to, we got Nellie in the house. What's up, Nellie? Thank you very much. Robert saying hi to Nellie. So thank you very much for that. But it comes down to worthiness, right? So when you think about it, are you worthy of love and happiness? Are you worthy of abundance? And a lot of those things comes from our childhood, and it comes from the experiences we have with our parents and our caregivers and our teachers and our friends and our brothers and our sisters from the time we're born to about 5, 6, 7 years old, depending on the studies you look at. And it even can be further back in utero, like when we're in mommy's tummy. What was mommy's psychological situations? What stress was she under? What things was she ingesting? And speaking of addictions, me personally, my mother was on drugs and booze, and her stress level was through the ceiling. She was 26 years old. And so it's no wonder that I was challenged with my own addictions early on in life. It's no wonder that I still to this day deal with anxiety and depression. You guys may be surprised about that, but it's true. This show is about honesty. This show is about vulnerability, whether it's myself or my guest, and it's you guys in the comments. So I would love for you guys in the comments, whether you're watching live or on the replay, put in the comments maybe what it is that you struggle with. What substances, what activities do you struggle with as far as addictions go? Because you guys wanted me to have this conversation. And so when I think about getting to the root cause of something, the addiction usually is an avoidance of pain. What are we trying to avoid? We're trying to ignore. We're trying to drown out the negative self-talk. We're trying to drown out the fact that we don't feel worthy, or we don't feel love, or we don't feel like we deserve something. Another aspect of why we run to our addictions is for control and for certainty. We as human beings, right? We as human beings want certainty. We want to have control. That's why when somebody says, why are you afraid of heights? Really, when you go down deep into it, it's a fear of being out of control. And so oftentimes we go to our addictions to drown out the long-term consequences of something in order to get that short-term gratification. Again, I'm going to give you guys some definitions here. And oftentimes our addictions, or the things that provide us opportunities to change, is in terms of hitting rock bottom. You may have had people in your life, or you may have experienced this yourself. When do people generally change? When something catastrophic happens. You walk, like I said before, with Julie, she walked into a doctor's office and they gave her a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. Everything shifted for her. I have seen people go from being overeaters and boozers and drug addicts. They get a clinical diagnosis of something that's an impending doom or impending death. And guess what? They have the leverage to change. And so my goal in this conversation tonight is for you guys to do some proactive reasoning with yourself, some visualizing with yourself, so that you don't ultimately have a regret for not addressing whatever type of addiction you have in your life today. And so I'm going to give you a definition right now. And I'm a firm believer in definition. So definition, I'm going to give you a couple of these things. Definition, of addiction, a strong inclination to do, use, or indulge in something repeatedly. It goes on to say an addiction is a compulsive need to use or do something despite the negative consequences, right? Every action has a reaction. Everything we do has a consequence, whether it's positive or it's negative, whether it's constructive or destructive, right? I like to do those little play on words. It can be a physical or psychological dependency on a substance or activity. Now, here's the characteristics of addiction, right? Let's keep it simple. Craving, a strong desire to use a substance or engage in an activity. Loss of control, an inability to control the amount or frequency of use. Now, a lot of people these days are addicted to their cell phone. They're addicted to social media, right? We all often know, gambling and all the other different types of addictions, but people are addicted to their cell phones. They're addicted to the ding, right? A compulsion, a feeling of being driven to use a substance or engage in an activity. And here's another one for you. Continued use despite consequences, continuing to use a substance or engage in an activity, even though it's harmful. So I invite you to ask a question right now to yourself. What am I doing that potentially might have a catastrophic negative consequence in my life? Maybe I'm eating too much sugar. Maybe I'm drinking. Maybe whatever. I'm gambling. I'm driving myself into debt. I'm smoking. Or maybe I'm addicted to negative relationships or having bad people in my life or negative self-talk or punishing myself. We're going to get into that. Obviously, another one of the addictions that I have helped people overcome is the addiction to shopping. Oh, when I buy something, I have something new. I know people who have been addicted to Amazon. People in my house, right? Oh, you go on and order something. What showed up at the door? The doorbell rings. Ding. Oh, I get to open something and there's a new feeling. There's an endorphin release. The root causes of addiction. This is important too. I'm reading this, so just so you guys know. The root causes of addiction include trauma, mental health struggles, and genetic predisposition. However, it's important to keep in mind that there is no one cause of addiction. No one can completely predict who will become addicted after substance abuse and who will not. In addition, addiction is a complex brain disease, arises from chronic changes in brain chemistry. Dopamine. Right? Dopamine, bing, bing. Ooh, we've heard about laboratory mice, laboratory rats. A lot of people doing studies on that. The Pavlovian bell, like the bell, and then they get a treat. There's different aspects of that. And the reward pathway is triggered by substance or behaviors leading to a compulsion to seek these rewards despite the negative consequences. You guys see a pattern in this? Yes. And so to share with you, like, Chris, what are your addictions? My addictions are my compulsions, or what I like to say, my preferred behavior styles used to be alcohol. And at times it's been actually pain medication. I've been on pain medication since 2006 for my back. I started off on Vicodin, then I went to Norco, and then I was on Percocet. And so I found myself being accustomed, not addicted, but I found myself accustomed to the feeling that those things brought me. But most importantly, or not most importantly, but the biggest addiction, if you will, was booze. And I got to the point where in my 30s, my friends had a mini intervention with me, and they labeled me a high functioning alcoholic. And my immediate response to that was, fuck no, I'm not. I just enjoy drinking. But you know what? When you get honest with yourself, right? The center core part of this conversation tonight is honesty and truth. And I'm going to share with you later on some questions to ask yourself that when you're truthful will create some leverage in your life for you to change. So for me, it was the alcohol. And when I started digging into why I drank, it was anxiety. It was to fit in socially, because when I started drinking, guess what? I became the life of the party. I became the funny guy. I became the guy with the confidence to walk up to the most prettiest girl in the bar and ask her to dance. Liquid courage, right? Fortunately, I wasn't an asshole drunk. I was a fun drunk. But it caused me to take a step back and realize, okay, am I utilizing this substance in a positive way that's having positive outcomes? And for my friends to have that conversation with me caused me to sit there and take a really deep look at myself and to think, who would I be without that alcohol? And that was the first time in my life where I decided to quit drinking for periods of time. And so the first thing I started doing was I would take take the beginning of the year off, right? Have a party on New Year's Eve. And then the very next day until my birthday, which is February 26th, I stopped drinking. And I have to admit, the first couple of years of doing that was very eye-opening for myself, because guess what I realized? Being truthful with myself, I realized going to the bowling alley involved drinking. Going to the bar obviously involved drinking. Dating involved drinking. Hanging out at my friend's house involved drinking. Going to the desert involved drinking. Going to the movies involved drinking. Everything in my life involved drinking. So guess what I had to do? I had to have a different perspective, and I had to have a different predictive outcome of what those events would mean for me not having a drink. And I still vividly remember going to the bowling alley for the first time and feeling very awkward because I wasn't drinking. And that was an opportunity for me to see myself in a different light and sit there and say, you know what, Chris, do you really need alcohol to have a good time? And it took me a little bit for me to realize no. And it took me to be vulnerable, and it took me to push myself outside of my comfort zone to not have that certainty to know, oh, if I drink, then I'm going to feel good and I'm going to be the life of the party and I'm going to relax. Because for me, you guys know me, if anybody has been watching me or listening to me for a while, I'm a very high energy person. And so in my brain, things are always chaotic. So when I would have 3 Jack Daniels, guess what? This feeling of would come over me. And I would literally say to myself, this is what normal people must feel like. And so that became my excuse. And as long as I didn't do bad things to people and I didn't hurt them, guess what? It was okay. But I will be totally honest with you. I had 2 experiences where I drove under the influence, and I am not proud of that. And there was 2 times that I nearly could have died. One situation, it was raining that night, and I got off the freeway and I took side streets, and there was a sharp left turn on a curve, and I didn't see it. I was in my 89 Ford Bronco. I almost went over the side of a cliff. The only thing that stopped me was a barrier, a curb. If you guys are watching this, it's probably, I don't know, a foot, if that. It's a small curb, basically like a parking lot bumper curb. You know those concrete bumpers? It was a lip that was that high. And fortunately, my 33-inch tires caught that lip, because when I got out and I looked, it was straight down. And I'm pretty sure in an 89 Ford Bronco with a short wheelbase, I would have went ass over tea kettle, you know, basically rolling and tumbling all the way down the bottom. And God knows what would have happened to me. And fortunately, that was a wake-up call. And then there was another situation that happened also. And fortunately, I had the wherewithal to realize that if I continue doing this, guess what the outcome might be? I might get paralyzed. I may become a quadriplegic, you know, or I may die. And that for me was not worth it. So I had to take a look within myself. And then I progressively stopped drinking for longer periods of time. And guess what I realized? That although it was uncomfortable, that I could still be me. And progressively, I was able to find myself. And even to the point where last year, where I would quit, you know, I would quit for 90 days. I'd quit for 60 days. But a year ago, October of 2023, I think it was October 22nd, if I'm being honest. October 22nd, funny how things show up in our lives. I was watching YouTube and Dr. Andrew Huberman came on. And guys, you know, anybody who's following health knows Dr. Andrew Huberman. And oddly enough, right, I saw this YouTube video where he talked about the effects of alcohol. And we all know alcohol is bad for you. But in that YouTube video, I encourage you to go look at it if you drink alcohol and you have a problem with it, or, I mean, even if you don't. But it talked about the conversion from alcohol into acetylene formaldehyde or something like that. And for me, my big why in life is to live long enough to see my son, who's 8 years old, he was 7 at the time, he might have been 6, see him get married and have kids of his own. And for me, congruency, not being a hypocrite, is massively important. And so as I was taking the sip of my 4th Jack Daniels, which I could drink a lot of Jack Daniels, I realized I was being a hypocrite. And I was actually pouring poison into my body, yet having the expectation that I would live to be in my 80s. And the next day I quit drinking. And I said, you know what? Wonder what it would be like if I didn't drink for a year. And I have a pool, summertime, I tend to put on 10 pounds and eat good and drink beer and drink Jack Daniels. And I immediately overnight said, I'm going to quit drinking. And at that point, I wasn't sure how long, but I pretty much had decided it was going to be 6 months to a year. But then I said, what would it be like if I actually made the commitment and didn't drink for an entire year? So I'm encouraging you, whatever situation you might be in right now, challenge yourself, push yourself, right? We talk about here on the show that 1% daily improvement over a period of time. What can that really truly lead to? And I was really, really proud of myself. I got to the 3-month mark and I'm like, okay, I've done 3 months before. 4-month mark, 5-month mark, 6-month mark. I went to a wedding with an open bar. I would have destroyed that in my previous life. I didn't drink anything. I think I may have had a non-alcoholic beer. I don't even think I had that. And guess what? I had a blast. You know why I had a blast? Because I looked at everybody and said, you guys are all going to feel like shit tomorrow. And I got to see people make an ass out of themselves and have a good time. You know, it wasn't a bad thing. But I woke up the next day and guess what? Everybody was like, oh my God, my head. And I'm like, I feel great. Let's go for a hike. And you know what was the real overwhelming feeling is the feeling, a sense of pride, the sense of accomplishment, and realizing I don't need any of that shit. You know, I just turned 56 a couple of weeks ago on February 26th, and I'm in really great shape for being 56. And so now I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, barring anything unforeseen, I will live long enough to see my son have kids and be a grandpa. I think somebody just posted up here. Robert said, yeah, become Grandpa Rausch. Absolutely. 100%, man. You know, it is about that. Robert also says here, song memory triggered. We Came to Dance by Ultravox. You know what? Honestly, I don't know that one. So this show is about honesty. It's about transparency. And so that for me was the situation that I was dealt with. Unfortunately, I've been very aware and cognizant in my life not to have any other addictions, and I don't. So I'm pretty happy about that. I have an addiction to helping people realize their true potential in life. And that's why we're having this conversation tonight. So thank you guys for that. Another reason why we run to our addictions is because we feel overwhelmed, right? And I know for me, I would have a bad day at work. I'd feel overwhelmed by people or stress or traffic and anything else. And I knew certainty that if I had a couple of drinks, I would feel better. And so that was the prescription. I'd have a couple of drinks and wow, I'd feel better. My anxiety would go down. I'd feel a sense of relief. The chaos in my brain would calm down. And that was the predicted outcome. Also, social in situations, that becomes the new normal, right? And another reason why we're triggered, and I love the fact that I think, Robert just used the word triggered. Oftentimes we're triggered by something, and that's why we go to our short-term gratification. If I shop right now, I know I can expect to get something in the mail. I know if I gamble right now, I'll get a dopamine hit in my brain. Another reason why we have, what's up, Nelly? She's back here. I thought you were here. Yeah, you were here. She says, hey there. Hi there. Another thing we get addicted to is blame and being the victim. Again, going back to what I said before, where do a lot of addictions happen? They happen from our belief systems of when we're 0 to 5 years old. And so we become addicted to the validation that we need. We become addicted to the fact that perhaps we are always the victim in our situations. And so what do we want to do? We want to run away from that. And we play the blame game. It's not my fault. It's my parents' fault. And again, like I said in the description before, the genetics sometimes are a predisposition. But guess what? Aside from genetics, we have the opportunity to sit there and say no. We have the opportunity now in this conversation tonight, whether you're listening to this or watching this, for yourself to sit there and say, you know, what are some potential behaviors right now that are going to have an ultimate consequence that aren't going to be aligned with what my true legacy is? Think about that for yourself. Right? Especially if it's something negative. What are the consequences of staying in negative relationships? And oftentimes misery loves company. So we stay in those situations. I want to share with you guys who are watching, I want to share with you guys a representation, a visual representation, because I'm a huge guy on pictures. And so I have seen this and I've shared this many times in my coaching practices. And it's something that really impacted me. Have you guys ever seen where is it? You guys ever seen the horse tied to the chair? I hope you guys can see that. But that to me is learned helplessness, right? If you tie a large animal, I remember it being an elephant when I was using it, but you tie an elephant to a post, or you tie an elephant to a chair that's made out of concrete, and that elephant tries to move and they can't. Ultimately, if you just put a plastic chair there, that elephant or that horse in this situation that you're seeing right now, for those of you guys listening, there's a horse that is tied to a chair, and it says sometimes the chains that prevent us from being free are more mental than physical because of your beliefs. You believe that you're tied and you can't go anywhere. So guess what? Your beliefs inspire your feelings, and your feelings inspire your actions. It isn't until we become aware. Right? There's a reason why you're listening to this. There's a reason why you're watching this, whether it's now or it's 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now or 2 years from now. There is a reason why you're hearing this message. And there's a reason why people ask me to talk about addictions tonight. So in your situation that you might be in right now, what are the limiting factors that you believe to be true? What is the learned helplessness for you? And I inspire you guys to think about that, because when you do, it's pretty incredible what it is that you can accomplish and what it is that you can change with your life. We got some new comments here tonight. Andrea Parente says here, well, I think that's new. I think you changed it. She goes, yep, that's why when I went through my divorce, I was drinking wine every night, and it was anxiety and not feeling good about myself. And the wine helped me, but I love that I don't drink anymore and I feel better than ever. Right? It becomes that awareness, right, Andrea? And I'm proud of you for that. It's really super important to realize that the reasons why we're doing something, and when we get honest with ourselves, that's opportunity to change. And is change uncomfortable and is change hard? Absolutely. But you know what sucks is regret. And I've got plenty of experience out of anything in my life, and the people I've coached and the people I've mentored and the people I've spoken to over the years. The biggest thing I see, the biggest thing I hear is this phrase: I wish I would have done it sooner, which equals regret. I wish I would have done it sooner, Chris. I wish I would have quit overeating sooner. I wish I would have stopped doing drugs. I wish I would have stopped my marriage. I wish I would have quit my job. I wish I would have started my business. I wish I would have anything. I wish. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I've seen people that went from amazing shape to being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. They have to take insulin injections because they did not take care of themselves. I know somebody personally in my life who is on 18 different medications right now. They're on a medication for a medication for a medication. And the side effects of those medications debilitate them. And guess what they say? Chris, I wish I would have taken better care of myself. I wish I would have not stressed myself out so much. It was not worth it. There's another phrase that I hear a ton. Chris, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. Striving. For me, one of the things I guess you could say I was addicted to was overachieving, right? The validation. Oh, Chris, you're so awesome. Oh, Chris, you're always outperforming everybody else. And I literally got 6 promotions, I think, in 2 or 3 years because I just kept doing. I would be the first one to get there and I'd be the last one to leave. And guess what? Oh, Chris always gets it done. Chris. But guess what? I kind of sort of regret all that fucking shit I did because it nearly killed me. I actually crashed my adrenals twice. I woke up one day and I felt like somebody pushed me off a 2-story building or a 10-story building. And I went to the doctor and they ran some tests and they said, guess what? You crashed your adrenals. And I said, okay, what pills do I need to take in order to keep going? They said, Chris, you need to rest. And so when I look back on all the validation and all the monetary compensation, everything else, it wasn't worth my health. And I can tell you this with all honesty. I've coached people that have had heart attacks and strokes and have had cancer. Guess what? It's never worth it. The stress, the eating, the drugs, whatever it might be, what they did to their liver, what they did to their pancreas, what they did to their lungs, what they did to their body, it wasn't worth it. So I'm glad, Andrea, that you did that. Nellie says here, she goes, I was depressed for so long. I really think I didn't want to say goodbye to it, but I had to when I started having thoughts of suicide. Right? Again, we think about the consequence. And oftentimes it's one of those situations where, it is the leverage, right? The leverage. When the leverage becomes great, we make that change. I was just giving somebody the example the other day and they said, oh, Chris, they were talking about losing weight and getting healthy. And I said, how long have you been trying? They said, oh, Jesus Christ, for like 10, 15 years. And I said, why hasn't it stuck? And they're like, I don't know. And I said, you probably don't have a big enough why. And I said, using this example, because I'm always trying to use analogies and whatnot. And I said, what's your favorite car in the world? If you had a dream car, what would it be? And this particular individual that I was working with said a Ferrari. And I said, how bad on a scale of 1 to 10 do you want a Ferrari? And they said, oh my God, a 10, that would be so amazing. And I said, okay, if I asked you, if I challenged you to lose 20 pounds in 2 months, could you do it? Oh, Chris, I've been trying and I lose weight, then I gain weight and I do this and, excuses and situations and all this other stuff. And I said, okay, all things being equal, you lose 20 pounds in 2 months, I will give you a Ferrari. Which one do you want? The Testarossa? Do you want the 308 GTB? What is it that you want? Would you do it? If I said no taxes, no strings, no nothing, you lose 20 pounds in 2 months and I give you a Ferrari, would you do it? Guess what their response was? Just like that. Yes. And I said, why and how? Because I'd want it. So you think about that. What's the leverage in your life? Right? When I think about it in terms of myself, if I got diagnosed at that point when I was drinking a ton, if I got diagnosed and I had to sit there and I put this in my brain, if I got diagnosed tomorrow with cirrhosis of the liver or fatty liver, Or if I got pancreatic cancer, which oftentimes we don't find out about until it's in stage 4, right? Patrick Swayze died of pancreatic cancer, had all the money in the world, had all the fame in the world, still died from it, right? The guy was a fucking chain smoker. I couldn't even believe when I learned later on in life how much he smoked cigarettes. There are outcomes and consequences to everything in our life. And so if you're within earshot of my words tonight, and whatever it is that you might be, take this to heart, right? Take this to heart. And a lot of it really is down to worthiness, right? We stay in negative relationships. We're addicted to bad relationships because we don't feel worthy. But I'm here to tell you, you are 100% worthy. You're more than worthy, right? It's time to give up the negative self-talk. It's time to give up, I can't. It's time to give up, I tried before, but it's time to give up, why bother? It's too late for me. I'm too old. I've heard this excuse from so many different people. I had a guy on my show 3 or 4 episodes ago. And what was his name? I'm drawing a blank on it. Let me get you that name, because that was a powerful, powerful episode. That guy really inspired me. He's the same age as I am. Let's see. Where is he? Eric Jackson. Eric Jackson, episode 304. It was, give you the date, February 18th. He was a big time drinker. We have so much in common. If you didn't see that episode or listen to it, you got to go check it out. When I had my introductory conversation with him, I was blown away at the similarities, but he too got to a point where he's like, I was known as the party animal. I was the guy that, that always drank, and he stopped drinking, lost a ton of weight, feels better than ever, making better decisions. His company's thriving better. But again, he got tired of the excuses. And at 56 years old, or actually 54 when he really did it, 54, 55, completely changed. He works out 7 days a week. 7 days a week. He makes it a priority, whether he wants to or not. He looks great. He sounds phenomenal. He's crushing it with his family. And the bigger thing is he is inspiring legions and legions and legions of people who he works with, who he's friends with, his family, his grandkids, to take control and take charge of his life. Right? We got to stop with the short-term gratifications and realize that this is a long game. And now we have the opportunity more than ever, and it's going to be more exponential in the next 5 years if we want to live to 120, to live to 140. But the toxicity of the negativity in your brain and the outcomes of what it is that you're poisoning yourself, whether it's the beliefs or the gambling or the sex or the pornography or whatever it is else that we talked about tonight, is killing you. And so when you make that choice and that decision to prioritize yourself, prioritize the love for yourself, prioritize the people that you care about the most in this world, right? When I talk to people who've had negative diagnoses or consequential diagnoses, and I talk to them about the people they love the most, I said, do you really want to put your family through this? They're going to have to experience your decline. They're going to have to experience seeing you go from this powerful person to withering away. And that's what I had to experience with my mom. I begged her all my life to quit smoking. She chain smoked. And she told me when I was a little kid, this was back when the smoking programs were really big in the schools. She told me, it's none of your fucking business. It's my body. Shut the fuck up and leave me alone. She told me that as a little kid. Guess what? 67 years old, she got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer after an operation to amputate her leg above the knee because of her smoking. Her smoking caused atherosclerosis, which is the hardening of the arteries. And her leg got a wound in it. And because it wasn't getting blood flow and it wasn't getting oxygenated blood, the limb started to die. And I have pictures of it. Basically, it became gangrene. And she had to have her leg amputated. And as part of the surgery process to get her prepped for surgery, they had to do a heart test, and they had to look at her lungs. They found spots on her lungs. They did a lung biopsy, stage 4 cancer. And so me, now in my 40s at the time, got to say, hey, Mom, do you still want me to fuck off about your cancer? Do you just still want me to fuck off about your smoking? Or do you want me to be here for you? And so I had to watch one of the most powerful women in my life deteriorate. And it wasn't until she had a fucking baseball-sized tumor that metastasized to the back of her right shoulder. I have pictures of that too. It wasn't until the recovery of that surgery, pretty much probably about 4 months before she died, that I was standing in her hospital room, and they pretty much told me that they were going to be surprised if she made it through the surgery because she was so weak, but she did because she was an amazingly strong person. And I had my back to her at the hospital room, and I was getting something out of my backpack, and she said, "Tell Barbara it's not worth it." And I'm like, like, she's behind me. And she goes, "Tell Barbara it's not worth it." And I turned around and I knew what she meant. It was a very, very pivotal, personal, emotional moment between my mom and I that we never really had. We never had emotional moments. It wasn't a lot of affection at all. And I turned around and I looked at her, and she looked very sad. She looked very emotional. And I said, "Tell her what's not worth it." And I wasn't going to make a big deal of it. I wasn't going to say, "I told you so." And she said, "Smoking." And she looked down and she looked sad because she knew she was dying. She was having even more difficulty to breathe than she did before. She had COPD. She had, basically emphysema, but she was still smoking. And at that point, I knew that she regretted smoking all of her life because she knew she was dying. Do you want to get to that point? Whatever it might be. It may not be smoking. It may be cell phone usage. It may be food. It may be sugar. It may be toxic relationships. Whatever you might be addicted to, what is the outcome that potentially could happen? So we got Darlene in the house. What's up, Darlene? We got Sherry McQueen in the house. What's up, Sherry? Thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate it. This is a very serious conversation. If you're just coming in right now, I encourage you to go back and watch the beginning of the show or listen to the beginning of it. But I want to talk about the 4 C's of addiction: compulsion, craving, control, and consequences. Compulsion. This refers to the overwhelming urge or need to engage in an addictive behavior despite negative consequences. We keep talking about that word, consequences. Craving, an intense desire for a substance or activity that can be a powerful trigger for use, even when a person understands the harmful impact, right? You may not care what it's doing to you, but does your family deserve? Do you want them to see your decline and ultimately have to deal with your passing? I know people right now that are dealing with the consequences of their parents' actions and not taking care of their health. And now they have to deal with their estate. They have to deal with getting rid of their stuff, the emotional things that go along with that. Do you want to put your family through that? Or do you want to live a long, healthy life? We're all going to die anyway. But do you want to have a nice, long, healthy life and enjoy the moments with your family and your friends and your loved ones and continue to make an impact and share your gifts with the world? Your answer should be yes. Another part, loss of control is a major characteristic of addiction, including an inability to stop using a substance or engaging in a behavior even when they try to. And the last one, consequence. There are negative outcomes that result from addictive behavior such as health problems, relationship issues, or legal difficulties. Lord knows, do I know so many people who have had DUIs, multiple DUIs. The financial impact, the loss of houses, the loss of income, the loss of ability to get a job, all the different things. Right? It's pretty incredible. Consequences, right? This is your opportunity to be truthful with yourself. And here's something that I think about in terms for me. We often have to hit rock bottom. So here's what I want you to do. Whatever the situation is that you're engaging with, proactively see yourself. For me, it was seeing myself in a doctor's office, and the doctor physically, I had visually visualized this. "Christopher, I'm sorry to tell you, you have cancer of the liver. There's nothing we can do. It's too late for a transplant. You have 6 months to live." And I thought, is what I'm doing now worth it to get that? Everybody in my family has died of cancer. This is why I quit smoking when I was in my early 20s, because my grandfather died of cancer 20 years after he quit smoking. Here I was chugging away. Monkey see, monkey do, right? My mom was doing it. My grandfather did it. My grandmother did it. My sister did it. We're all smokers. That's what we are. We're smokers. The day after my grandfather died, I went to the hospital and saw him. My grandfather was a powerful man, 6'5", worked in aerospace, McDonnell Douglas. When I went to the hospital, I never realized his hair wasn't black. His hair was white. He went from being a 6'5" powerful man to being super frail and skinny. I was shocked. I was in my 20s. Yeah, I was in my early 20s when he passed away. And I had not seen him. He didn't want anybody to see him. But my mom and I were told that we needed to go to the hospital. So we drove down to Long Beach. And I walked in the room and I was like, oh, where's my grandfather? There he was. 20 years after he quit smoking, still dying of lung cancer. I smoked that day. I was at work the next day and I thought to myself, nope, that's not what I'm going to turn out. And I was pretty addicted to smoking. I smoked in my car. I smoked at parties. I smoked when I drank. I smoked everywhere. I even smoked in my office. That was back in Los Angeles when you could smoke at your workstation. That's how old I am. I crumpled the cigarettes up and I threw them in the trash can. And for 6 months, I literally gritted my teeth. I chewed big red gum morning, noon, and night. Right? So when you think about stuff, sometimes we have to replace the situations that we're in. Holy shit, I've been going for 45 minutes. I wasn't sure how long this conversation was going to go. Darlene says here, she goes, mom, lung cancer. I'm guessing you're saying your mom died of lung cancer. Yeah. So here's some things I want you to think about. Again, when you have a big enough why, you have a big enough how. I'm very big into questions. If you've been following me for any length of time, you guys know that questions have power. So I want to give you guys some questions. If I quit, what will I gain? Right? If I quit, insert addiction, insert negative behavior, insert negative, whatever it might be, what will I gain? And write it out. Don't just tell it to yourself. Write it out, man. I'm a big fucking fan of paper. Write it out. See it. Visualize it. What will I gain? I'll gain independence. I'll gain strength. I'll gain longevity. I'll gain happiness. I'll gain clarity. I'll gain the opportunity to inspire my family. List it all out. Here's another question. If I quit blank, what will I be free of? I'll be free of embarrassing myself when I have to go outside and smoke a cigarette and come back in and stink. Fuck, do I hate people who smoke. I can't stand the smell of it. Stench. It's nasty. It's dirty. I personally don't want to be around people who smoke because they stink. Fucking truth, right? What will I be free of? I'll be free of the embarrassment that I'm addicted to smoking. I'll be free from an embarrassment of whatever it might be. Embarrassment's is a big opportunity for you to change. So if I quit, what will I be free of? Or if I don't quit, what might I regret? Ooh, regret. You guys know, if you follow me on social media, you guys know, hashtag no regrets. What will I regret? Here's another one. Is blank making me stronger or weaker for those I love the most? People don't want to see you deteriorate. People don't want to see you poison and kill yourself. People don't want to see you gamble your life away. People don't want to see you fucking sit and waste your life. Go outside and see the trees. I've been inspiring somebody who wanted to lose weight. I said, what would it be like if you fucking entered a 5K? Oh my God, Chris, I've never been able to do that. Yeah, up until now. Up until now, right? What's the leverage going to be for your life? Here's another question. What is this ultimately leading to? What is this ultimately leading to? Right? Go on fucking Google and Google people who have lung cancer. Go in and Google people who are obese. Go in and fucking diabetics losing their legs and losing their feet and losing their limbs and losing their eyesight. Is that where you want to go? Is that where it's not leading to anything positive? It's not. I promise you. Here's a powerful, powerful, powerful one. You guys may have heard me talk about this before. If I died tomorrow, or if I died from this, whatever it might be for you, is this how I want to be remembered? There's a few people in my life that unfortunately I remember them how they were when they passed. I remember them for their addictions. They were powerful people. And if I choose to think about them that way, of course, I'm going to remember that. But I remember them for having that regret, for saying, Chris, I wish I would have tried to do it sooner. I wish I would have had somebody in my life. Right. And there's some things we can do. Therapy. Right. Oh, I tried therapy. It didn't work. Well, fucking get a different therapist. Me personally, I had to go through 6 different therapists one time to help me identify where my weaknesses were and my challenges were. Right? With depression. I had to go through 6 therapists. I didn't give up. Another solution, get around the right people, right? You're like the 5 people you're around the most. If you're hanging around with a bunch of drinkers and smokers and eaters and gamblers and sex addicts and whatever else it might be, guess what? You're going to be like them. Back in the day when I hung around all my party animal friends, I was a fucking party animal. But when I decided that I was not going to be like them because I saw the writing on the wall and I said, if I continue to do what I'm doing, I'm going to wind up regretting this later on. I'm going to wind up working 6 jobs and being fucking an alcoholic and a smoker and fucking die early. When I got away from those people, I went and got into school, and I was in school for 12 years. I got my GED, I got my associates, I got my bachelor's, and then I said, you know what, fuck it, let's go for the mountaintops. And I went and got my master's degree. I spent 12 years in school. I sacrificed most of my 20s in order to sit here before you guys and say I was a 7th grade homeless dropout who earned a master's degree. So I got around the right people. There's hypnosis. I know people who have gone to hypnosis and quit smoking. I know people who've gone to hypnosis and quit drinking. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. There is plant medicine. I even put this down here. Go back and check out podcast number 293 with Sam Leibowitz. It was on December 3rd, 2024. There is so much power in plant medicine. Ayahuasca, mushrooms, aka psilocybin. Psilocybin is being used now to treat depression. You can do a couple of psilocybin ceremonies and it can help you with your depression. I'm not going to say cure, but there's also ketamine therapy. I know people who have done ketamine therapy. There are so many opportunities out there. But first and foremost, you got to decide you're worth it. You have to take that chance. You have to put your physical health first. The 5, right? You guys may have heard me talk about this. Hydration, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and vitamin D. Start there. Drink half your body weight in ounces of water. Track your sleep. I have an Oura ring. O-U-R-A. Oura. You can find it. It's a sleep ring. It tells me how my sleep is. Exercise. Get exercise. Get out and get some fresh air. Get sun on your skin. Get vitamin D. Get a vitamin deficiency test. Actually, I'm going to do this again. I haven't done it in a couple of years. Got a vitamin deficiency test. Guess what? I was low in magnesium, zinc, potassium, and vitamin D, even though I eat bananas and I get daily sunshine. Started taking a vitamin D supplement, started getting potassium supplements, eating more bananas. Guess what? I feel better. When you feel better, you make better decisions and you prioritize your health. Look at me. I'm 56 years old, man. I had no plastic surgery. I look fucking great. Yes. So take care of your physical health first. And this is what we can do. You can set a quit date. Like, I'm going to quit on my birthday. Everything I've decided to do, I've pretty much decided overnight. Tomorrow's the day I quit smoking. Tomorrow's the day I quit taking painkillers. Tomorrow's the day I quit drinking. Right? What is it going to be for you? Think about those things in your life. And for God's sakes, if I inspire you, come coach with me. Come join my group coaching program. Or continue at the very least. Go watch my YouTube. I have nearly 1,000 videos on there. Chances are I've said some shit on there that's going to help you change your life and continue to change your life. Just imagine going in there and watching one video a day for the next 365 days. There's over 1,000. There's nearly 1,000 videos. There's no excuse. If you can't afford to work with me, hit me up. I will give you 5 books to read, right? You can go to the library and still check them out. 5 books. You can probably listen to them on YouTube. 5 books. You can listen to them on Audible. You take 3 strategies from 5 books. Think about that. 5 strategies. 3 strategies from 5 books. 15 strategies. You implement those in your life will change. The question is, will you take action? Darlene says right here, I just got prescription vitamin D. I didn't know there was a prescription for vitamin D. I take a vitamin D3 supplement. It's a once a week thing. Guess what? Bam. Robert says here, I have a watch that tracks my sleep. I'm probably mineral deficient though. All right. If you're mineral deficient, go take the minerals, man. Right. There's no excuse. Right. Darlene says here, oh my gosh, me too. Couldn't do anything without cancer stick in my mouth. Quit February 2017. Amen, sister. Fucking A. Right? There's a reason why you're listening to this. There's a reason why you're watching this. And my ask for you, if I have provided value for you, please share this out, because there are people out there in your life that need to hear this. And that's not from an egoic standpoint. That is because my mission every single day that I'm alive, my legacy is to impact the world in a positive way, to change the way people think about their past and their present and their future. For us to be healthier and happier and love one another and to be more united than divided. To leave a world for our kids where they can be proud, they can be safe, and they can have opportunities. Right? Can we all do that together? Can we take better care of ourselves and inspire those around us to take better care of themselves and to share and love one another and to do something nice for an individual and a complete stranger every single day? Can you imagine if you did something nice for a complete stranger 365 days, how different the world would be if we all did that, if we all made that commitment to do that? So please, as payment for what I've just shared with you for the last hour, the payment that I've done for the last 306 episodes of life-changing material, can you share it out and say, hey, check this motherfucker out. He's a pretty cool dude. He says some pretty smart stuff. Can you do that for me? Tag me in it. And please let me know what future topics and conversations you would like for me to have here on the Raw Unscripted show. Whether you're listening to this, send me an email, info@noexcusescoach.com. You guys can find me on social media @noexcusescoach. If you Google #noexcusescoach, you'll find me everywhere. You'll find tons of interviews. You'll just find me. And so if you haven't done it already, please go to my YouTube channel and support that. Hit the subscribe button, watch some videos, hit the like button, share this podcast out. Help me help other people. And I promise you, together we'll make this world a much more kick-ass place. So with that, who do we have next week here on the Raw Unscripted show? Again, doing more solo shows, but I think next week, we got a treat for you next week. I'm going to be coaching. I've been asked to coach people live on the show. So I have a gentleman who is brave, who's going to come on the show, and I'm going to coach him. You're going to see live how I coach somebody. And in exchange for doing that, this guy's going to walk away with some strategies to help change his life. So I encourage you to show up next week. Encourage you to comment on this, whether you're watching live. Of course, you guys are watching live, watching on the replay in the morning. I know my East Coast people are watching tomorrow. Thank you. March 25th is a solo show. April 1st is a solo show. I'm reaching out to some people who are, let's say, highly affluent, who are going to be guests on the show. I'm raising the bar. So together, let's make this world a better place. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm going to go enjoy my life. I'm going to go enjoy my night. I'm exhausted. I've been talking since 6 o'clock this morning, helping people change their lives. So I'm going to go enjoy some nourishment. I love you guys. We'll be back here next week, every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, rawandunscripted.com. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the podcast. Help me help make other people's lives better. Okay. I love you guys. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Darlene. Thank you, Nelly. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, all the beautiful people. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, all the people that didn't comment who are watching. I love you guys. Love, not fear, right? Love, not fear. See you next week here on the Raw Unscripted show. Peace.